Happy New Year, PFJers. Welcome back to my channel. It's Lisa the PFJ here. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and New Year. I hope you got to spend it with the people you wanted to. I hope you got all the presents that you wanted and you ate and drank to your heart's content, just like I did. Today's video is going to be a bit of a recap of what I thought was the best, what I thought was the worst, and what I thought was just the downright meh of 2024. And without wasting any time, the film that I thought was the best of 2024 was the horror movie Late Night with the Devil. Now, I don't know how many people will agree with this because I do know that it was a bit of a 50-50. It was a mixed bag in terms of reviews, both from the audience and the critics. But I thought overall it was a really solid effort. I liked the lead actor in it, David Dastmalchian. Forgive me if I've pronounced his name wrong. But he was very good. I thought the supporting cast were really good. I thought the overall concept was excellent. I thought the execution was not the best. There was a little bit of the film where it started to fall off, and it does kind of follow the formula of, you know, possessed child freaking everyone out, and it has the same sort of found footage kind of feel as like the Blair Witch Project, so it's not exactly breaking any molds. But overall I just think it was a really solid effort. I thought it was really entertaining, and I thought it was really good effort all round from everyone involved. And my other best movie of 2024 was Dune Part 2. I really enjoyed the first instalment of this, so when I knew there was a sequel coming I couldn't wait to see it, and it didn't disappoint. I thought it was overall an improvement on the first one. I really enjoyed the performances. Timothée Chalamet did a really good job against Paul Atreides. Everyone else was pretty good, apart from Zendaya, who, no offence to her, isn't really my favourite actress, and I find her a little bit one note. But other than that, pretty good performances all over. The only things that dragged it back a little bit were the dragging on of the Bene Gesserit story, which I found there was a little bit too much of for my liking. And given that I've seen quite a lot of people say the same, I'm glad to know I'm not the only one. And the lack of Austin Butler. When I found out he'd been cast in this movie and having seen him in the movie Elvis, I was very excited to see what he was going to do after and see him in other stuff. And when he did appear in the movie, he stole the show, but he just wasn't in it nearly as much as I would have liked. But other than that, really good effort, and the direction by Denis Villeneuve and the sound, visuals, score, yet again, were absolutely stunning, so cannot fault that at all. So overall, big thumbs up from me. In terms of new movies of 2024, those two were the only ones that really stood out for me. What I spent most of last year doing was refamiliarising myself with some older movies that I really liked, and I also went through a phase of watching quite a few movies from the IMDb Top 250. I managed to get through quite a few of them, and there were two so far that really stood out to me that I wanted to tell you about. The first of which is a movie called Best Years of Our Lives. It's a movie from the 1940s, and it features four men who are all returning from service in World War II to a small town in America. They all have very different backgrounds. One's an ex-bank manager, one works in a department store, the other one is a sailor who's lost both of his hands and is worried about how his family are going to react to him when they see him again. Each of them are really compelling, really interesting. The story's brilliant, and it's really well done, really well acted, and it just has an overall uplifting and feel-good thing, even though there's quite a lot of moments where the subject matter is quite hard to watch because of all the experiences these guys have been through, having served in the war, being quite traumatized. It was just really overwhelmingly positive to watch, and I really, really enjoyed it. And to know things about it, like the actor who played the sailor who lost his hands was genuinely a serving sailor who did lose his hands in an accident while he was serving in the Navy and had never acted before in his life. So to see him perform in the movie as he did in such a wonderful way was just a really, really cool thing to know. So definitely one that if you ever get the chance to watch, I would recommend you do. The second one is a movie that came out in 2014 called Wild Tales. It's an Argentinian comedy drama ensemble film which has multiple different stories told in one movie, split into about 6 or 7 different bits, but the overall theme is revenge. None of them are connected through their characters or stories, it's just each one is themed in some way or another around the theme of vengeance. It was really good, it was really interesting in its layout and very interesting in its format. Some of the stories are a little bit more humorous, some of them are a bit more heavy in subject matter, But overall, it was just a bit madcap, a bit mental, and I really had a lot of fun watching it. And again, if you get the chance, please give it a go. Now on to TV shows. I have watched a few things this year. Some of the ones that did stand out were a show called Silo, which, if you're not aware, was a really good one. It's on Apple TV, starring Rebecca Ferguson, a dystopian future where everybody's living in a silo underground. The second season was released this year, and I've only watched about 5 or 6 episodes so far, but what I've seen is pretty good. And I've also recently started watching the second season of Squid Game, which... good, but absolutely not as good as the first season. But my standout show of 2024 was this guy behind me, Clarkson's Farm. Now, I know this isn't technically 2024 because it was released way back in 2021, but I'm late to the party, so forgive me. I absolutely loved this show. It was so good, and it's classic Clarkson. Everything you come to expect of him, if you know what he's like already, haven't seen him in anything else, you know exactly what you're going to get. This is exactly how it is. And it's super entertaining. Some of the side characters in it are hilarious and really entertaining too. I think the one that stands out is Caleb, who just, every time he pulls Clarkson up on his shit, it's hilarious to watch. His girlfriend Lisa's also really good fun. And just overall, a really excellent show. I've only seen season 1 so far, but what I've seen I've absolutely loved. But what I also like about what it does is that it really does open your eyes up about how backbreaking and soul-destroying the farming industry truly is for anyone who's working in it. And all it's done is just raise the amount of respect I have for anyone who works within that industry. So that I really like too. Absolutely 100% would recommend. Please do watch this if you haven't already. And now on to what I think was the worst of 2024. This is a fairly short list because my philosophy of 2024 was to try and reduce the amount of crap that I watched, which I succeeded at for the most part. And because I really just didn't want to watch something for the sake of hating it and wanted to really improve what you call your media diet. So I think I did a pretty good job on that front. But I did still manage to see my fair share of crap. And the top of the list for me was this one right here, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now, I'm going to say from the start, we didn't watch the entire film, so you'll ask, how can I make a judgment that it's the worst of 2024? Because that 15 minutes or so that we saw was probably the worst of anything I've seen, and it was a bigger slap in the face because of what an amazing franchise Ghostbusters was, at least to start with. And so much so that in the past couple of weeks, it's actually something that I could mention that me and my family sat and watched the first 2 original movies back to back, and just what a wonderful experience. Some films I never ever get tired of. Even the second one, which I don't get why it gets half of the hate it does, but if you watch that and then watch this, I think you would probably feel a bit differently. What little I did see of this was just atrocious. It was just the story didn't seem like it was going very far. Not that I really could tell what the story was going to be at that point, to be fair, but it was just awful. And as soon as the girly character, whose name I forget at the moment, I think she's called Phoebe, she's Egon's granddaughter and therefore stand-in for him, made a snarky comment about the patriarchy from the 19th century. And then they go to the New York mayor's office and Walter Peck's sitting in the seat. I was like, okay, I'm done. That was enough for me. It was enough for my husband too. So there you go. Please avoid at all costs. And another standout worst of 2024 for me was a horror movie called Immaculate, starring Sydney Sweeney. Now, when you hear that name, you think she's the hot topic of the moment. Surely it's going to be quite good. Not in this one's case. It was fairly bog standard as horror movies go. The premise was kind of interesting, but the execution was just dire. She's a nun who arrives at a convent in Italy. She has a bit of a past, which is alluded to at the beginning. By the end, she's the vessel for a demon baby. I'd love to be a bit more descriptive than that, but to be honest with you, I dumped this movie pretty much as soon as I finished watching it. It was a messy, it was all over the place, the execution was terrible, the performances weren't that great. If you're a big horror fan, which I am as well, I don't think you would get anything out of this. And even in Sid's safer hands, because like I said, Sydney Sweeney is kind of the big thing at the moment, she's the flavour of the month, but given her and her assets, if they can't save this thing, then I don't think there's many people who can. And even the best actress in the world, I don't think would be able to save this one. Just don't bother wasting your time. Even if you like your horror movies, this one isn't for you. And on to the worst TV series of 2024. There isn't actually a lot I can add to this for the same reason of the movies side of things, where I said my philosophy was to try not to watch things that I knew I was going to hate and try and improve my media diet. And so I applied exactly the same thing to the TV shows I watched. But what little I did see of the two I'm going to mention, I could tell very much that they were going to be the worst things I'd seen that year. One of which was Rings of Power. I watched precisely 20 minutes of the first episode and tuned out oh so quickly, and given how I felt about the first season, I was absolutely not going to devote any more time to the second. So there's that, and there's also this one up here, The Acolyte. And again, I'll disclose, I only saw a little bit of one episode. It was like the first 15 minutes of the first episode, and then I've seen segments of other episodes going forward as well. And I'm not just talking about little clips here. I've watched like scenes from other episodes too, and oh my goodness, no, this just was not no, it was terrible. The acting in it was awful. From the first time I see Carrie-Anne Moss in that first scene, it was like, why are you in this? You don't need to do this, Carrie-Anne, why? Everything about it just screamed, just inject as much of the current thing as you possibly can into one season. What if we could do that in a Star Wars show? That's exactly the vibes I got from it, and it was just dreadful. And given the controversies surrounding it, from remarks from the main star Amanda Stenberg, I think that's how you say her name, and some of the stuff she said about the fans and how toxic they are and how full of vitriol, and her diss track that she made. I mean, whoever's in her management or who are in her close circle who told her that that was a good idea, or who didn't bother to tell her that it was a bad one, really she could do with changing up the people she surrounds herself with. And also the not so small fact that the show was cancelled. So there's also that. I know that it's been spun around to say that it wasn't cancelled, they just haven't renewed it, but same. I did not like this at all. And finally on to the downright meh of 2024, and I have a couple of entries here, both movies, the first of which is The Fall Guy. This, for the exact reason I've created this category for the video, it was a movie I didn't love, but I didn't hate either. It was just fine. There was plenty of it that pointed to that it should be good, but it just wasn't that much fun to watch. And I know that it didn't do that well at the box office, from what I understand. It also got put onto streaming not long after it had been released, which shows that a lot of other people weren't feeling it either. There were some bits that were fine. There was some of the action sequences were pretty cool. The humour didn't really land for me for the most part. There might have been one or two bits that raised a chuckle, but otherwise it was just not that funny. But the biggest surprise was the lack of good performances. And given who's in it, we've got Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt as the leads, and there's a supporting role from Aaron Taylor-Johnson as well. All three actors who I really enjoy, and I've seen them in plenty of things that I like. So to see them not really bringing on their 100% was quite surprising. And even bigger than that was the fact that Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt's characters are a romantic couple in this movie. And given the lack of chemistry between the two of them, I never would have been able to tell. So, yeah, I felt the chemistry between these two was absolutely non-existent, and it shocked me because, like I said, it's two actors who I think are capable of so much more. Chuck this one in the bucket and don't bother. And my second and final meh movie of 2024 was Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, I don't know how that's going to go down with a lot of you guys, because I know there were quite a lot of people who loved it, so please hear me out. In the same way of Fall Guy, I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, I just thought it was okay, and I think they could have done better. I don't want to say my expectations were super high, just because Marvel hasn't inspired much in me at all. I haven't seen a Marvel movie since Spider-Man No Way Home, so that's how much I've been invested in it of late. So I wasn't really expecting too much, but what I did see I just wasn't overly keen on. I think but some of the things they did right. Hugh Jackman coming back was just a nice thing to see. Seeing him in the yellow and blue traditional costume from the comic was quite a nice touch. I think for the most part, him and Ryan Reynolds had some really good chemistry. They really bounced off each other really well. But overall, it was just wasn't really feeling it. The cameos, which there were so many, ones that did land for me were Elektra, playing Jennifer Garner, coming back as her, and Wesley Snipes' return as Blade. And even though their eventual inclusion in it doesn't really bring too much to the story, if anything at all, it was just nice to see both of them back, especially Wesley Snipes, because being a huge Blade fan, especially the first two movies, it was a really nice touch. A lot of the jokes didn't land for me. I think they were just trying a little bit too hard, and that is overall the feeling I have about it, is just the whole movie was just trying a little bit too hard. And I understand there are bits of it, like from the TVA side of things, and I wasn't super familiar with this, other than things I've just heard from other people, because I haven't watched any of the Disney Plus Marvel series at all, and I know that that's an inclusion from Loki. So my ignorance on that made it so that I didn't really get what impact it would have on it either way, but I just didn't feel like it brought anything either. I think it was just made it a little bit too convoluted. And the whole thing of having this thing with various timelines where it excuses them being able to bring back characters, and comic book characters in this case specifically, who are already, we're presuming, are dead, it just comes off as a little bit lazy to me. They really did sort of dial up a lot of the Deadpool stuff to 11 and made him a Deadpool about as Deadpool can be. So for a lot of people, I guess that landed, but just for me, it didn't really pull it off that well. So overall, just didn't really think this movie lived up to the hype. And I know it did make a ton of money at the box office, so hey, what do I know? So that about wraps up my best, worst and meh of 2024. I hope you guys liked the video. What did you guys think? Did you like any of the movies that I said I didn't? Did you hate some of the movies I said I did? Are there any other movies that you would include in your list yourselves? And if so, what are they? I really would like to hear that, so if you guys want to let me know, drop yourself a comment. If you wouldn't mind liking the video, subscribe to my channel, and also share it with anyone you think might be interested. And just a bit of housekeeping for the channel, I've been working on a couple of things. This was being one of them. I've also got a couple other videos I'm working on. I'm looking at doing some more streams as well, just overall getting some more stuff up on the channel as often as I can. Real life does sometimes get in the way, but as long as you guys understand that, then it's all good. So that's about all I have for you guys today. Thanks again very much for watching, and take care. Bye bye.